Hi, I'm Dr. Keith Johnson. Let me bring you up to date on a situation that happens in the book of Ruth. Ruth, in her family, has a tragedy. And in this tragedy, the mother in law decides that she's just going to be by herself. She's going to go to wherever it is that she needs to brood, and without any company or help, just live wherever she's going to live. And then out of the book of Ruth, Ruth stops her mother-in-law and says these beautiful words that I'm sure you've probably heard out of the first chapter. Ruth said, "Entreat me not to leave thee, or to return from following after thee. For whither thou goest I will go, and where thou lodgest I will lodge. Thy people shall be my people, and thy God my God." Love, somehow keeping the two of them together, mysterious force that you and I have to deal with on a regular basis. Love is not something we understand or something that I can explain. Few of us can. But the love that we demonstrate for each other and for ourselves is also the love we emulate to God, who himself needs love. To find the essence of the source of what experienced, Jesus said, "I am the way, the truth, and the life." Part of that life is evidently a need for love. Not only to share it, but to receive it. You and I were built in God's image, and we need to reflect that love just like He did. Love is the essence of what makes us move. It has a lot to do with our passion, where we go and how we decide our emotional abilities and what we decide to do with our life. Love is a very complex kind of experience that's difficult to understand. We try to love ourselves by giving ourselves presents. We try to love others by expressing the giving of presents. We have trouble expressing ourselves about our feelings of love and how we purposely feel about what's happening in our lives or in the lives of the ones we're trying to love. It's not easy to say to our children, "Look, we love you and this is why we're doing this." Or for children to even say to their parents, "Mom and Dad, I love you," although simplest it seems to be able to hug or to hold on to a parent when they're young and things are simple and so uncomplicated. Love is a very mysterious force that is imparted by God the Father and gloriously shared by His creatures to degrees beyond human comprehension or reason. That's why we can't explain it. That's why we don't understand it. Inside ourselves, we need to love. We're born to love. And we're born to not only receive love, but to give it as well. And when we don't give it, we become misapprehension in all kinds of our activities. We make mistakes. We do the wrong thing. Sometimes because we want something and don't really love it, but instead decide that we need it. We grab for it or try to steal it, or all kinds of actions that take place that shouldn't. Sometimes, because somebody won't give us the love we think we need, we hit or we strike back. We insist on hurting because they're hurting us. And yet the truth of the matter is, how we handle our love is not their fault, but our fault. It's not who is hurting us. It's a question of how we are hurting ourselves and the kind of decisions that we make that cause us to go against God or against our friend or neighbor, our family, and yes, to even go against ourselves. No wonder the Lord said of the first Christians, "By this shall all men that you are my disciples, if you have love one for another." That's how we're able to express our Christianity to somebody else and not be a hypocrite. And that's why so many people who pretend to be Christians are hypocrites, because they don't express their love for one another, because they don't have the love that they should have. They don't nurture themselves. They don't take care of themselves or take care of each other. When Jesus was talking to the rich man and he asked, what was the greatest commandment? Jesus said, "The second is like it, that you love your neighbor as you love yourself." And the reason we don't know how to love is because we don't love ourselves. We don't know how to love ourselves. We don't know how to love somebody else. We don't know how to express it. We don't know what to say or to explain to somebody, look, I really love you. Sometimes we hope that in our gifts or in our attempt of approval that somebody will understand and bypass some of these complications. But learning to love each other has a lot to do with learning to love ourselves, to believe in ourselves, to approve of ourselves, and then to approve each other. And that's one of the things we want out of love, approving not only ourselves, but each other. It's not easy to get there. Jesus said, I say unto you, love your enemies, bless them that curse you, do good to them that hate you, and pray for them which despitefully use you and persecute you. If the Spirit of Christ surfaces at this point in your life, you will know that you have done more than join a church. All men will know that you are disciples if you have love one for another. How much love do you have for somebody else? But for that matter, how much love do you have for yourself? How are you taking care of yourself spiritually, physically, mentally, and socially? We need to have people. We need to have health. We need to experience life. And we need to know that part of life is learning to love each other properly, and we only learn that by learning to love ourselves. If you don't have somebody to love, you have to go out and look for them. And you can't be whole or complete unless you're able to find them and you really care. It takes a lot to love yourself. It takes a lot of effort to love somebody else. In fact, in some ways, it's far more difficult to love somebody else, which is why so many things like marriages fall apart. I don't know who you are or where you are or what you're doing, but I strongly suggest you do two things. Try to love yourself and try to find somebody to love. Somebody you appreciate who can work with you. Now I can tell you, and you don't have to wait for me to tell you, you know it as well, that there's a lot of trouble with loving. A lot of arguing, a lot of sitting down, because you and I have egos, and we want to work with our egos. We have certain ways of thinking, and sometimes we just don't get along with somebody else. But humility is a major part of love. Humility is a major way to sit back and say, you know what? Maybe my opinion is not that important. And maybe later on I can explain my opinion and it can be listened to when I get appreciated. Don't wait for appreciation. Earn it. Work hard at trying to get where you need to be. Consider God's position with you. God loves you so much that Jesus died on a cross to save you from your own self, to help you to experience His love and His power and His conquering spirit, to overcome sin and even the worst of our enemies, the devil. God loves you and He wants you to know it. Look at how hard it is for Him to convince you half the time that He does love you. How hard it is for you to believe that God really cares about who you are and what you're doing. I was sitting one day with a young lady in my office, and she was crying all the time. I said, "Why do you cry so much?" She said, "Because I don't think God loves me." There's only one reason that God wrote that book. There's only one reason you have a Bible in your hand. Because God has been trying to tell you how much He loves you. And there's only one reason that Jesus went to the cross. In order for Jesus to tell you that God loves you and He wants to take care of you. Love shows itself in action. And more important than anything else is our being able to show whoever it is or whatever it is that we love enough to dedicate our actions to that cause. Find somebody to love. Love yourself. And love the God that made you. Sit down and say to God, look, I made some terrible mistakes, and I'm trying to get rid of those mistakes, but most of all, I want your spirit in life. God, how can I pray to make my life better? What can I do to love you? And then ask your neighbor, what can I do to love you? What do you need? How can I help you? And then ask yourself, what do I need? How can I make myself better? How can I love me? 3 difficult questions. Not easy to answer, but once you find out, you'll be far better for it.